Hey everybody, this is Linda with TWC Pilates, and today I just wanted to give you an overview of your lymphatic system, why it matters to your health, why you should know about it, and what you can do to keep it healthy, and then just give you an idea of what happens in our lymphatic and body reset session. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will begin. So I'll try and keep this short and sweet, although this is a huge subject that I've become very passionate about in the last couple of years. And how I got into it was just this real desire to help my clients get out of and stay out of pain so they can live an active lifestyle for a lifetime. And as clients would come in and I would say, how are you? They'd say, oh, you know, same old, I got this shoulder thing, or I got this neck thing, or another client would come in and, oh yeah, I've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. And it just didn't sit right with me just to go, okay, well, let's just carry on and kind of work around it. I want to see my clients get better. So I started down this rabbit hole of learning about the lymphatic system, and I'd like to acknowledge my teacher, Dr. Perry Nicholson from Stop Chasing Pain, for some of these slides. So we'll just take a little quick look here at what's called your body's ecosystem hierarchy. And what this is it's basically what your level of hierarchy is in terms of survival and importance in your body. And notice here, number one is your brain. And if you look at the small print, the brain as it connects to physical and mental stress, your vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve will be another subject area, but it is the most important nerve in your body because it regulates your immune system. It regulates how your body responds to stress or distress. And it does also regulate inflammation in your body and your brain's response to whatever is going on in your body. So your vagus nerve is super important to your health and well-being. Number two on our survival is your lymphatic system. So in number one, your brain will take what it needs in terms of oxygen, in terms of nutrients, such that its main role is to survive the day. At the end of each day, your brain goes, survive that one. And it's like, yep, check mark, I did my thing. Number two, with the lymphatic system's job here is to remove waste and toxins from your body. It is your main inflammation reducer in your tissue. So we can take things like anti-inflammatories that can be a very valuable thing to do when you have the onset of acute injury or pain. But in order to manage inflammation on a daily basis, you do want to make sure that your lymphatic system is moving well and that we don't have any stagnation in or restriction in the lymphatic system. Number three is your gut. Many of you have heard of your gut-brain connection. And if you have any issues in your guts in terms of digestive issues, IBS, Crohn's, colitis, leaky gut syndrome, typically leaky gut is connected with all of those things. You're going to have issues in your brain and you're going to have issues with your lymphatic system. Your vascular is your blood flow, your circulation through your body. So if you have nerve issues in your hands, in your feet, you get numbness, tingling, Raynaud's, those sorts of things. If you have pain that's not going away, you're going to have vascular issues. If you have vascular issues, you have lymphatic issues. So really, if we can take care of 1, 2, 3, and 4, the rest 5 through 9 will be managed really well. What I want you to notice is here 8 or 9, the musculoskeletal and the local tissue, it's not usually until we have physical pain, like all of a sudden I have shoulder pain or I have numbness and tingling down my arm, my back hurts, my knee hurts, that we start to pay attention. However, unless it's an acute injury where you've had a fall, there's been an impact, much of people's pain comes out of nowhere. There can be sort of an overall achiness, an overall malaise, connected perhaps with chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia as an example, anything autoimmune, arthritis, that we don't pay attention until we start to feel pain in the body. But all of this has been impacted long before we actually feel the pain. So to get better, to get well, to heal from the shoulder, heal from the back pain, we must address what's going on in these higher levels of our ecosystem in order to have less pain in number 8 and 9. So your lymphatic system, I just want to show you this chart here. I want you to notice the red in the middle where it says blood and lymph, and notice that all the arrows are pointing back in towards this. So everything that comes into our body from exposure, food we eat, air we breathe, things we touch, they pass through our GI tract, our skin, and our lungs. And then everything funnels to the lymph and through the blood flow, and it may get stored in the liver, in the adipose tissue, in the brain, and in the bone. The job of the lymph in the blood is to take the toxins and waste from these areas, from our cells, such as that it can leave our body. And basically the excretion is through our pee, our poop, our sweat, and our breath. But the important thing is to notice that everything that comes into our body and then is determined how it leaves is connected to the blood and lymph in some way. So if we have stagnation in the fluid flow of the blood flow, the circulation, and the lymphatics, we're going to have stagnation in the body. We're going to have waste that is being stored in our body, which is going to show up as restrictions of movement, tissue pain on touch, inflammation, or down the road, autoimmune conditions. When your lymph system is working well, it's like a clean aquarium, where here that the pump in the aquarium is working well, the water is clear, the fish and the plants thrive. If we have stagnation, if we don't have good fluid flow and removal of waste and toxins from the body, our internal aquarium can look something like this, where the water becomes murky, toxins and waste, they coagulate. And here's what happened is that the plants and the fish are unhealthy, or in our case, our cells and our organs become less healthy and they don't thrive. When we look at this particular slide, cells are only as healthy as the environment they live in. And what determines that is your lymph. So if we aren't clearing waste out, there's no room for nutrients to come in. So we've got to get the waste out through the lymphatic system, such as through our blood flow and circulation, the nutrients and the oxygen can enter the cell, giving us a healthy cell. Now remember, we have cells that die every day and new cells that are being created in our bodies every day. And the idea is that the old cells, the unhealthy cells, get killed off, and that the body is healthy enough that we're making newer, healthier cells. In the case of disease and sort of accelerated aging, what happens is that the cells are being killed off, but then the cells that are being remade in the body aren't going to be healthier necessarily than the ones that are killed off. So it matters what we put into our body. It matters the air that we breathe. It matters the thoughts that we think, but it also matters that we can get the waste out of our body. So here's a picture of sort of lymph in the body. So when you come in for a lymphatic and body reset treatment, I always treat the lymph first, and then I treat the blood flow and the circulation second. Because once I've got fluid flow going through the body, and then I start doing some muscle work, some hands-on work through trigger point body work, massage, manual therapy, then we can start to impact some change and really help the tissue to be hydrated and fluid, and then the new blood flow, oxygen, and nutrients to come in. I just want you to notice that lymph A is all over the body. The majority of lymph does live under the skin, but it also runs much deeper into our nerves and our organs. When we do our first treatment, I always do what's called an assessment, which is also a treatment where I'm touching on the areas where there's the majority of lymph nodes in the body. So the lymph always comes up and drains into the left collarbone, which is the side where the heart is. And so what we do is we start by clearing above the collarbone first. Say you come in with a knee issue. I want to clear all the lymph and make sure that everything is flowing nicely through the collarbone, through your sternum, through your abdomen, through your groin, so that when we work on the inflammation of the knee, that there's no restriction as the lymph flows up into the left collarbone. We have a ton of lymph in the head. When that drains, it's called lymphatics. We have a ton of lymph in our throat. And then in our sternum, our abdomen, look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? And then in our groin. We always clear the lymph in the front of your body first, because when we're clearing the front, we're clearing the back. But the majority of lymph is best connected to a front of body. I do work on the back, and we'll clear the lymph here around the scapula, the shoulder blade area, and the back of the knee. But here is just, yeah, a general look of the lymphatics in your body. So how do you know if you have a lymph issue? Basically, if you're alive on this planet, you're breathing in toxins and waste all day long. If you're moving your body, that creates lactic acid, which is also a waste product. So just basically living creates waste. But if you have any of these symptoms, then there is a sign that you have a lymphatic issue. Things like morning stiffness, tightness, soreness, itchiness, bloating or swelling in your face, your belly, or your extremities. Bad breath shows that you have some lung or organs that need to be detoxed, or a gut issue. Slow capillary refill, what that looks like is we have our skin is a certain color, and if I press on my hand and I take my finger off, how quickly does that spot go from white to the skin texture that's all around my hand? And we should be able to do that in 1 to 3 seconds. If not, there's an indication that there could be an issue around microcirculation. Your skin appearance, varicose veins, spider veins, acne, temperature, bloating, all those are signs that there's some stagnation in your lymphatics. And then painful or tender on palpating your lymph nodes. So that's what I'll be looking for when we do your original assessment. Say I'm clearing your sternum and I just touch on your sternum. I don't put a lot of pressure, but I want to know, is it feel tender to you? And then I'm also feeling, is it feel like there's any inflammation or puffiness? Does the tissue move well? So those are all things I'm looking for when I'm assessing your lymph. Chronic pain, chronic fatigue, poor sleep, inability to lose weight, brain fog. These, again, are all signs that there's something sluggish in the lymphatic. Is this potentially the only cause? No, we looked at the vagus nerve on our hierarchy of our ecosystem. We looked at gut issues. We looked at blood flow issues. But the lymph is connected to all those things, as we showed you here. So if we can deal with the lymphatics and the blood flow, we're going to provide support to everything else. And then when you manage your nutrition and you manage your sleep and stress, now we have something going on. So one of the things my teacher, Dr. Nicholson, always says is no system gets injured alone, no system heals alone. We do need to create a collaboration of efforts to help our body get healthy, but the blood and lymph is a huge, huge player in all of this. So continuing with some of our symptoms, we have slow recovery, training plateau. You know, you're just like, wow, my muscles just don't recover from exercise as quickly as we used to. Delayed onset allergies. Maybe you didn't have allergies as a child or a young adult, and all of a sudden you're getting into your 50s and 60s and you're getting these allergies. So we want to take a look at what's going on both in your guts and in your lymph. And then red eyes, gray eyes. You know, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you feel like you have a clear head, or you're, you know, or do you feel groggy? Do you feel puffy? Do you have tension headaches, or, you know, just that sense of just, I'm tired, I can't wake up, memory issues? Those are all signs that we're not draining in our brain, in our lymphatics when we're sleeping at night. So what moves lymph? Two things is movement and breathing. And so, you know, I find that when clients come in and they have a healthy exercise regime, they maybe practice some breath work, some meditation, typically their lymph isn't too bad unless they have some chronic pain that hasn't gone away. There's definitely a correlation that I find in clients that do Pilates regularly. For example, those are a lot of the clients that I see, because I have a Pilates studio, that their lymph actually feels pretty good. So movement and breathing. So this takes us into the importance of our diaphragm. So your diaphragm is your upper core. It sits up and in under your rib cage. And the diaphragm, when we do good healthy breathing, the diaphragmatic breath, the upper is your diaphragm, the bottom is your pelvic floor, the bottom of your pelvis. What happens is the diaphragm contracts down, the pelvic floor drops down, and then as you exhale, your pelvic floor contracts, pushing the diaphragm and the air out. So we get this beautiful pump. Now, what's between your diaphragm and your pelvic floor are all of your organs and your intestines and your sex organs, so that when we get this movement happening, this beautiful pump, we're now really stimulating and massaging and getting fluid flow and oxygen and nutrients into the organs as we're getting the waste out. So I just want to show you this, this video. It's very cool. So this is imaging of the breathing. So this front part here is the front of your body. And then of course, this would be the back. And what's happening is as this person's breathing, you can see this pumping action down and up. So when we breathe well, what we're getting is really beautiful fluid flow all through the abdomen area. And if you have ever hurt your back, you will find it hard to breathe. You'll find it hard to activate your core. And so when someone comes in with back pain, I spend a lot of time clearing the lymph in the abdomen. And then we do breath work. We'll definitely do some hands-on trigger point. We'll do a little bit of movement that feels good. But we always will clear the abdomen and do some breathing, because this is going to relax the back. The other thing I want you to see in here is how crammed it is. So between your diaphragm and your pelvic floor, everything is jam-packed in there. There's not a lot of space. So the only way to get things moving and get some circulation is through the breathing and through motion. And so this is where good posture is important, because if we sit all day and we sit slouch, what are we doing? We're compressing our organs, and nothing works well when it's compressed. So sit up tall as you're listening to this. Take some big breaths in deep down to the very bottom part of your pelvic floor, and keep doing that as you listen to this information. So when we are dealing with lymphatic, there's some hands-on treatment that we do to really stimulate and assess and get things moving. We always start with below the skin surface, because when we start clearing your lymph, we are also removing toxins, which means the liver has to deal with the removal of these toxins and this waste. And we don't want to overwhelm the liver and give you detox effects. So we always start with the skin surface. And then when you come back for subsequent appointments, we can start to go deeper into organ pumps and brain pumps to really deal with any inflammation and stagnant lymph that's sitting deeper into the body. I just wanted to show you one more video here on the breathing, and explain what else we do in our lymphatic and body reset sessions. So this is in Italian, but it doesn't matter. We really just want to watch the video and the pictures. So we talk about our diaphragm as this muscle in the upper core and being able to do a diaphragmatic breath. But ultimately, we have 4 diaphragms. And what that means is that when we breathe, there's 4 areas in our body that need to be able to move. And if there's restrictions and they don't move, we're going to have issues with being able to get a proper diaphragmatic breath. So here we have the skull. So when we inhale, the skull expands. We have our joints in our skull, and the skull contracts. We also need movement in our sternum and in around the collarbone. So you could see how this whole area was moving. And now we've got our diaphragm moving, and notice the rib cage motion and the spinal motion. The final one is in the pelvic floor. So your pelvis, When we inhale, your pelvis, it's like it tucks under, and when we exhale, the tailbone comes out. So the idea is we have these 4 pressure points in the body that when we breathe, we need these to be able to move. So what I do in the lymphatic and body reset is I actually will do release work around the base of the skull, around the collarbone, under the ribs and around the back, and then around the top of the pelvis and around the back. Often by just clearing the lymph and releasing those pressure zones, there's a whole lot of change that can happen in the body, in our energy, in pain that dissipates or disappears, simply because we now have movement where there wasn't movement. And now they're bringing in all of the organs, and we can start to see how everything works together and how that pump really gets the organs moving, how the shoulder blades and the rib cage, they move together with the breath. So if we're all locked up in our neck and all locked up in our shoulders, I have restriction in the shoulder joints themselves, it's going to affect my breath. So we need to release those things. Gorgeous. So this is what happens when we breathe. Now, we don't see people walking around and they're doing all of this when we're breathing, but that movement is definitely there. Great. So in our lymphatic and body reset, so who comes for this? Basically, people who are in pain, people who have inflammation issues. It could be an injury that hasn't healed after an appropriate amount of time, that sort of couple of weeks or 6 weeks if there's a ligament issue or a bone break. People who have chronic stuff that just came out of nowhere and it doesn't seem to get better. People who are dealing with edema, swelling of the various limbs or joints, arthritis, anything in the autoimmune, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, all of that, those categories are going to have lymphatic stagnation and restrictions in movement. So what happens in our first appointment is I will take a history. Your history matters. I want to know if you fell out of a tree when you were 8 years old and landed on your tailbone. I want to know if you've had concussions. I want to know everything in your history. And then I want to look at what are your goals, activities, and hobbies. I want to look at it for 2 reasons. That I want to see if there's any sort of imbalances in the way that you move that could be connected to pain that you have. Because most sports are single-sided and they will create imbalances or certain restrictions unless we deal with them. And then I also want to know what's important to you, right? Like you're coming in for a treatment and I want to know what it is that you want to be able to do that you're not able to do now so that we can really speak to that and do the movement screens and assessments so that you know when you go out and do something that you're interested in, that your body can support you. We then do an assessment as well as a treatment in terms of how are you when you move. We work with the lymphatics and assess where do you feel tender on touch. And then we also do muscle testing. So say you come in and you have hip pain, I want to see what's going on. Have you got restrictions in your psoas, your piriformis? So I take everything from the lymphatic and the breath. We deal with the vagus nerve to bring the stress down, but we also do practical things around muscle touching, movement, trigger point body work. I have various tools that I use, such as fascial therapy. I work with the MELT method. We do Pilates. We have breath work that we do. And so depending on what you need, I will draw on all of these tools. But every session will involve hands-on therapy and movement. And then after that, it's those little things that you do every day that really make the difference. And so I do give you homework. It's usually try and keep it short and sweet for you because it's important that you do it. More important than how long you do anything for, it's those little habits every day that really is where the impact is made. And so I'll give you things to do at home. So I hope that makes sense. If this is something that interests you, what you would do is just book one appointment and we go through the assessment and we find out what's going on in your body. And then we can have a discussion if you do 5 sessions or if we do something different. But you just start with the one and you learn and I learn, we discover together, and then we create a plan to help you live an active, pain-free lifestyle for a lifetime. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you. And if you have any questions, drop me a note. Otherwise, maybe we'll see you at the studio.